right, hello everyone. Hopefully you made it to our 2025 spring grower meeting that was held on January 15th. If you didn't, we have a few guys that couldn't make it, asked if we'd record our presentations, and here you go. So, or maybe you attended the meeting, you just wanted to watch it again. Real quick, my name is Kyle Renton. I've been with the co-op for almost 31 years now. It's hard to believe it's 2025. That just, for some reason, a quarter of a century just seems like a really long time. So happy New Year. We really appreciate all your guys' business, and we look forward to what this year might have in store for us. Really quick, just, I always put this picture in our compendium or in any of our presentations. It's just a real pleasure for me to get to work with all these fine gentlemen. You can see we have 18 full-time staff for the seed agronomy division, and we're spread out, all the way from Genesee up to Fairfield and Rosalia. If you add up all the years of experience with all these gentlemen, it's over 360 years. That's pretty amazing. I don't think there's a lot of other companies, at least in the P&W, that probably has that kind of retention and has that expertise. Everything I'm talking about here is in our 2024 research compendium. We got this put together mid-December. I think every year it grows by a few pages. This year it's pushing 100. If you hadn't been able to get a copy of this, give me a call or one of the other seed agronomists to call, and we'll make sure you get you one. Really want to thank our cooperators, the farmers that we work with. A lot of growers. We're on their farm every year. They're great to work with, and we really couldn't do it without you guys. So really want to thank everyone who, allows us to put a trial on your farm. The other big addition to our program this last year was this 2022 Winter Steiger. It was a demo machine out of Saskatoon. We got a really good deal on it. And probably the big thing here is the cab. It sure made harvest so much more pleasant, at least for me. I'm sure it added a couple of years onto my life. But, it sped up harvest by 40%. I think the data is a little more reliable. I think in the future, it's going to allow us to, do a little bit more, even above and beyond what we're doing now. Really want to thank Sean and the board of directors for their fortitude, allowing us to get it. And then we actually got a really nice one-time donation from the Idaho Wheat Commission. So anyway, pretty excited with that combine. Looking back at last year, we had about the perfect growing season to raise winter wheat. Of course, we had fall moisture. We got, big wheat going through winter. Last spring, we had a warmer, wetter spring, and then May turned off really warm, kind of a drier bias, and then we had a cool June. So you couldn't ask for better winter wheat growing. Really dependent on, though, if you got those summertime rains. So any variety that was early definitely won the trial, like Shine. Later varieties of winter wheat really fell off. But it probably had the biggest impact on our spring crops, even though, we got the crops in early this last year. With June being cooler, stuff, we didn't have a lot of growing degree days. Stuff was kind of laggy. And then July rolled around and definitely hot and dry. In fact, you look at July this last year, we had, I think, over a week of 100-degree plus days. It was the 5th to 10th hottest July on record. Looking at yield intakes for the elevator over, for P&W over the last 10, 11 years, you can see even years have been good to us. Odd years, they tend to slip off. Even though 2024, I think we had 27 million bushel intake. What wasn't quite as good as some of these other even years. It still beat all the odd years. So pretty interesting. I really hope we break that trend this year and we see 2025 being better. One thing I wanted to make note of, though, winter wheat was fantastic for most guys. If we could have had that July heat hold off for another 2 weeks, or maybe picked up that, another inch of rain in the month of June, we probably could have added 2 to 3 million bushel of intake super easy. It would have been right up there with 2018 and 22. Trend line, though, you can see it's slowly increasing. I think all you guys can attest for that on your farms. I think these newer genetics, varieties like Shine, just continues to raise the bar on yield. Still not bad, though, 24 for a El Nino year. Typically, those are warmer, drier winters like we saw a year ago. But yeah, turned out not too bad. Currently, we're in a weak La Nina. That really bodes well for the PNW. We typically are cooler and wetter. We definitely have seen the wetter winter, maybe not cooler. Really benefits Australia as well. Of course, they're right in the middle of cutting a record. I don't know if it's a record, but a very large white wheat crop. That's definitely not helping our white wheat prices. One thing we do know, we were pretty much bone dry, our soil moisture profile coming out of 24, but luckily that's getting filled back up pretty quick. You look at Genesee, we're 8.6 inches through early fall or late fall, early winter. The only other year that happened was actually fall of 22. We were pushing 10 inches in Genesee. You can see Colfax and Fairfield. This is the wettest fall that we've seen in the last 5 years. So setting us up good for, the coming crop, I think. And since December 31st, kind of threw that in there. I know we're still in the month of January, but I think all three weather stations, we picked up, over an inch of rain for that first week of January. Looking at NOAA's long-range forecast, if you can see where, the La Nina is supposed to dissipate by March. You can see for the next 3 months or the remainder of winter, we're looking at a colder bias with continuing to get a lot of moisture. I assume some of that's going to be in the form of snow. Looking into spring, April, May, June, temperatures look pretty decent. We got a drier bias, which is good. Hopefully we can get the crop in a timely manner. And then looking at June, July, August, don't like the looks of this. Once again, a drier bias and pretty warm, definitely above average temperature. I watch Eric Snodgrass a lot. He gives a weekly forecast on AgWest's website. When we get closer to the growing season, he'll start putting on daily forecast on YouTube. Really good forecaster. I think he hits it probably closer than anyone. He gave a forecast right around Christmas, mentioned this long-range forecast NOAA came out. Thinks that could be off. Why is that? And I hope he's right. But typically following a La Nina winter, that the summer heat dome, that ridge of high pressure, typically is pushed farther east instead of being completely over the Northwest. It's more in Montana and in the Dakotas. A lot of years when we transition out of La Nina, the PNW actually has a cooler summer. So I like the sounds of that, and that's what I'm going to go with it until he changes it. In fact, the year that this year could most similarly match would be 2022. Of course, that year we transitioned out of a weaker La Nina, in March of 22, and that's what's projected for this year. Overall, it was a really good year. If you looked at our intakes, we were at 30 million bushel. Overall, it was a good crop, but it was a mixed bag, and it really depended on where you farm. So if we do have a year that's similar to 22, winter wheat was 30% above average for a lot of guys. That was mostly out west, however. If you farm in that 20-inch rainfall less, cutting fabulous yields. As you got cooler, wetter, the farthest east reaches of the Palouse, we had almost too cold, too wet of a spring. We had a lot of nitrogen that leached out of the ground that year. Top dressing really helped. That's one thing to consider this coming spring, where we are sitting at 10 inches now. And we've had extremely warm temperatures. So I think there's only maybe 1 or 2 days that we've actually had some frost in the ground. So a lot of that nitrogen, fall applied nitrogen is probably converted. I know stabilizers do help, but I'd definitely go out there in March, pull a soil sample. I'm going to assume a lot of that fall applied in is getting down there in the profile, maybe a little on the deeper side than what you even want. So consider top dressing. The other thing interesting to note, 22 later maturing varieties were definitely the best. I just think those are varieties that maybe handled that cold, wet spring better, and maybe didn't fared better than varieties that break dormancy maybe too quick that year. Cold, wet spring, one thing we saw in 22, but we did have a few narrow planting windows that year. Maybe that was 3 or 4 or 5 days. You could get out there, get a couple field seeded, maybe either canola or spring wheat. The guys that did that, those yields were exceptional. Like most years, the later you got the crop in, we just saw those yields drop off pretty quick. One thing to note here, where we did have a full soil moisture profile, chickpeas had really good yields in 22, especially if you got that submoisture where they can go down there and mine it. Because we had a pretty hot July in 22, and they definitely handled the heat better than most other crops. Last, protect your farm with revenue insurance. I think most guys do, probably already signed up, but especially in that year, or if this year is going to be, if we do have that cold, wet spring and it lasts a long time. I think 22, we had 30,000 acres that actually went into prevent plant because, guys that farm in Troy, Idaho, or Potlatch, or Tensed, Worley, just never dried out enough to really get out there and get on a lot of those wet acres. Jumping into spring, what we have available, this coming year, of course, we have way too many spring wheat varieties. I do think if you look down here, highlighted in green, Bush and Butch. I think Butch is going to probably going to be the Clearfield wheat that you want to grow. And I think Bush, we're pretty high on it. I think it's going to probably replace all these other varieties. So maybe we can narrow that portfolio down here in a year. Hard red spring wheat, we have Hale or 9303. We do have a little bit of 9623 or 9668. Guys want to try that, but really like Hale. I think as a standalone, we're going to offer a Hale 9303 blend. I think a lot of our DNS growers are probably going to put that one in. Interesting, in 2022, both Tico and Hedge actually topped our trials, even though Tico's a little later maturing variety. Same with Hedge. For whatever reason, both those varieties did really well that year. In fact, if looking at our trial data, this would be Oakdale, Colfax, Genesee for the last 4 years combined. That's a lot of trial data. You can see Tico has a slight advantage over Ryan. Of course, Seahawk, maybe this is probably going away, or it is. It's always performed really good no-till and that heavier duff. That's probably where it still has a sweet spot. Over here on the right, we have Roger Spring Club Wheat. Last year was the first year we sold seed of this variety. It was somewhat limited. This coming year, we have a pretty good seed supply. It's 102% of the trial mean. I think I'll show here in a slide or two where maybe it has the best fit. Mike Pumphrey's WSU spring wheat breeders do an amazing job. Just continues to raise that yield bar, and we'll see that with Bush and Butch when they come out next year. But Roger has really good Hessian fly resistance. It's maybe more of that Melba height. It's not going to get as tall and lanky as JD or Hedge, and very, very good yield potential, especially a year like this where, there's only a 15-cent club premium. Every little bit you can add to the bottom line is going to help. And we got a few growers who have been ordering this one up already. Jumping up to Oakdale, this is the four-year average for up there. I just wanted to point out Tico definitely has the advantage. I think As you get in the higher rainfall, lower pH, Tico really, we see that spread even get bigger than this. Has that aluminum tolerance. Even though it's a little later maturing variety, still seems to finish pretty good. That's about all I want to show. Oh, and Roger had Oakdale. I just wanted to point out here, even though it's right at the trial mean for a 4-year average, it won that trial last year, Ken Kilpatrick's. Jumping down to Genesee, I don't have Colfax in here, but Colfax and Genesee seems like varieties perform about the same. Here we have WSU Bush, 113% of the trial mean. So, a really nice step up from either Ryan or Tico. Ryan, though, you get, a little warmer, drier climate. I wouldn't say Genesee's drier, but definitely maybe a little earlier. But you can see Ryan has that slight advantage, I think, just due to its earlier maturity. Ryan has a couple disadvantages, though. I think most anyone, if you're a grower watching this, you've probably have raised Ryan on your farm for quite a while. Definitely a little harder thrashing. Your dockage might be 2 or 3 tenths higher. And stripe rust, you get a year like 2020 or 2018, you're probably going to put an airplane on it for that second application. Roger, just like Oakdale, won the Genesee trial at 71 bushel. You can see here, in fact, where Oakdale, it's right at the trial mean, long-term average. Genesee, it's above the trial mean by 6%. And just want to talk hail. We've only tested it the last 2 years, but you can see this year in Genesee, it yielded 64 bushel. It was by far the highest yielding hard red spring wheat that we tested. And, yeah, it's going to be a really good choice if you're considering that one. How much money to raise spring wheat in 2025? Seed costs are going to be slightly cheaper than a year ago. Of course, we have a lot of fixed cost in seed, be it seed treat, premiums, truck freight. If that second slide I showed, we have 18 employees that, we provide, their salaries and provide for their families. Those costs are built in. But I wish we could say we're getting rich selling seed, but we're not. We have had a couple pretty good years profit-wise, though, and we paid back some pretty good patronages when it comes to that. Soft white spring wheat, you can see there, $33 an acre. So I think last year it was about $36. The other thing I want to point out, we've been running seed wheat for the last couple of months. Seed size is definitely smaller this year. Both our dry land and irrigated production. When you get 110 degrees in the month of July, you can't pour the water to it quick enough. We're just seeing a lot smaller seed size, which is pretty typical in a hot summer. So seed size will be smaller. So, say Ryan last year, you had to seed it at 110 pounds to get that 25 plants per square foot. This year, we're probably going to be closer to like 95 pounds. So that's going to help quite a bit. Fertilizer, that's probably the nicest one. 2 years ago, I think we were right around $1 a pound during COVID. Since then, and I know everyone has a different fertility program. You might be self-serve or full serve. Maybe you're anhydrous or 32, but I think I threw in 50-cent pound in, but that's probably going to be, pretty good budget to use. But talk to your ag chem supplier, start getting that dialed in for spring. Herbicide, fungicides. Hope you watched Shannon A's presentation. We recorded it as well. We've got a ton of foliar trials. One thing there, fungicides, especially on the spring grains, we haven't seen great return on investment. Still like to have that probably thrown in there, herbicide timing though. Probably this year though, I'd be looking at a generic Propy, something pretty cheap. I think some of these higher end fungicides, even though they're really good, really good for stripe rust, I think a lot of our genetics now on the spring wheat are pretty darn solid. Total cost per acre, I've got 168 bucks on soft white spring wheat, 195 on DNS, and 150 on barley. And those are kind of the budget numbers I'm using, right or wrong. This trial really, factoring in October 24th prices, we've really been hanging right around that $6 price range. I think wheat price hasn't changed more than 20 cents in the last 4 months. If you look at new crop prices, really not seeing it trend away from that as well. So it makes it pretty easy to do these budgets. And then used last year's trial data. The big focus there, we definitely had lighter test weights this last year on the spring grains. So, we're factoring that into the price, and then proteins. Maybe not so much for soft whites, but DNS, there's either a premium or a discount associated with those. Malt barley, once again, it looks really good on a budget. If we have that $220 ton contract, we still don't know what that's going to look like. I know our, Great Western is who buys all our malt barley. I know our tonnage contract is getting cut way back for this coming year. In fact, most of the barley we raise this coming year is going to go to Pocatello instead of Vancouver. So not quite sure what those transportation costs are going to impact price. But, if you grew barley this last year, if you made malt barley the contract specs and got that higher price, it was a pretty good program to have. Unfortunately, I think only about 25% of the barley that got harvested this last year actually made contract specs. So that July heat had a pretty big impact on it. Hail was the best spring wheat that you could have raised this last year, according to our data. You can see yielded right up there with the top soft whites at 63 bushel. 15% protein, so that brought about an 8-cent premium. Probably a pretty good choice this coming year, especially with fertilizer prices being down slightly. Roger was the highest grossing soft white wheat, really with that 15-cent club premium. Did really good in Genesee and Oakdale. Colfax, it really fell off. That trial got sprayed with Tylenol, and Roger was one of those that got really flashed, probably the worst with that Tylenol rally application. I guess keep that in mind if you are using Tylenol or on your farm this coming year. Maybe Roger's that spring wheat you want to stay away from. Butch, even though we won't have it until 2026 for any of the IMI spring wheats, which there's actually a fairly good demand out there. A lot of guys need it for fall and beyond on winter wheat, or maybe have those group 1 resistant oats where you can go out there now, hit it with 4 ounces of Beyond Extra and take those out. So going to be a pretty good variety, but really won't have it for another year. Jumping into canola, I think we can all attest it's a great tool. A lot of guys love growing it. The biggest thing is getting the crop established. Once it is, though, if you get a good stand, it's pretty easy after that. A lot of guys like cutting it. 9221, you can see down here at the bottom left, that's the variety I like. I think we've had enough trial data, enough farmers raising it. Yeah, pretty good choice. How much money to raise canola in 2025? Probably the biggest thing here is seed cost. I put a presentation together last fall or in November with our early order canola program. Really talking about or focusing on those seed costs because, if you have 2 varieties you can pick from that both yield the same, but one variety might be, $15 more an acre in seed, I'm probably going to push you to grow that cheaper value variety. Fertilizer, we treat it the same as soft white spring wheat. I've got 91 bucks an acre. Canola does really like phosphate and sulfur, though. That's one. I think you don't want to cut that short. Once again, maybe go out there, pull a soil sample in a couple fields where you're considering raising canola in March, see what that looks like. If you need to put a bunch of, P and S out there, those prices are still pretty flat, but it's expensive. Maybe that'll push you to grow something else instead. But knowing that will really help. Once again, if you watch Shannon Nay's presentation, we've got 3 or 4 years now with this Max In Vine and Veg. It's an amino acid based fertilizer. Seeing at least a 200-pound return, even at 15-cent canola. That's $30 an acre return on a $6 an acre investment. So got that added into the budget. I think that's definitely well worth the money. Coming down to herbicide, fungicide, insecticide, you're adding about another $15 there. Total cost per acre, $120. So if you factor in the 120 plus the seed rate or the seed cost, you're anywhere from 160 to over $200 an acre, depending on what variety that you want to grow. I'm going to use 9221 for the crop comparisons. Once again, really like that variety. If you're more conventional, you're getting really good seed to soil contact, seeding into great moisture. That's one thing we showed up here. You could definitely get by with maybe that lighter plant population. Be careful though. We really want 5 plants per square foot. So if we drop that seed rate back to 6 plants, you need about 90% emergence to get that. Seeding that little heavier seed rate, like 4 pounds. If you're getting some seed that's laying high and dry or getting it tucked in the duff, maybe more in that no-till environment. This is going to give you a better chance to get that 5 plants. Is it going to be the year for chickpeas or lentils? Definitely. We've already seen that in seed orders. Guys have been ordering garb seed from us since September. In fact, we've started a waiting list on Nash and Quinn. Unfortunately, still taking Billy Beans and Sierra orders. If you haven't ordered garb seed yet, I'd get your name on them. I think seed's going to be pretty tight when the drills start rolling. One thing I want to pay attention or make note, we saw that in 2017 and 18 as well. They look really good on my budgets, and I'm going to show here in a minute. They're going to look good on budgets on growers in Canada and the Dakotas as well. So it's going to be a lot of peas and lentils going in this year. And I guess time will tell if that was a wise choice or not. I think one thing that we saw in 2017, we saw record acres go in, but we had a lot of drought through the major pulse growing regions, where that year. So it really helped, even though with all the acres, production was way down and we saw prices stay strong. Maybe we could see that again in 2025. If you look at current drought in eastern Montana, western North Dakota, this eastern northeast corner of Montana, that's where the majority of the chickpeas and lentils are being raised. They probably put the most pressure on our markets. Currently in a stage 2 to a stage 4 drought, that looks like that's probably going to hang around. If Eric Snodgrass is right and that heat dome does get pushed further east, that could be kind of a dire situation for those guys this summer. Looking down at Argentina, even though they had a ton of rain early, they're right in the middle of growing their chickpeas. They're got pretty good drought getting it developed down there as we speak. In fact, if they don't get any rain the next 15, 20 days, their yields are going to deteriorate pretty quick. India, that's the big one. You look at the northern half of the country, which is right in the heart of their key chickpea growing area. Just like Argentina, their crop's growing as we speak. Harvest is usually going to start in March or April. So if recently though, they've been getting some pretty good monsoonal rains. If those continue, they're probably going to cut a pretty good crop. If they happen to dry back out though, you can see they've definitely been in a droughty situation. Last is Mexico. Majority, well, not 60-70% of Mexico's winter chickpea production is actually irrigated. So the current drought they're in right now really isn't impacting that. It's more of those dryland acres. That's where those are going to be probably severely impacted if they haven't been already. Jumping into varieties, of course, the picture on the left, we have large kabulis, we have Nash and Quins. Don't have it highlighted, but just left of the Quins or Sierras. You can see the Quins have a slight height advantage over Nash and Sierras. I think what I really like about Quins, they're really quick to sprout and emerge. In fact, a lot of times in our trials, they're coming out the ground same time as a billy bean. Whereas you might see a 3 to 7 day lag with Nash or Sierras. The other thing I really like about Quins is that first pod set is usually 8 to 10, 12 inches off the ground. Makes them really nice to harvest. I know everyone who grows them, that's probably the biggest compliment that they get. Bean size is good. I would say overall, Quins are going to have a higher percentage of A beans on Sierras pretty much any given year. Of course, we have Nash. You just can't beat Nash for the amount of A beans that you cut. Jumping over here on the right, we have our billy beans. I've been with the co-op for 31 years. We've had billy beans about the first year I started. So just kind of shows you how long that variety has been out there. I think we finally have that really good replacement though. You can see here in this picture, maybe just slightly taller by a couple inches. Not sure what we're going to name this variety, if it's going to have its own name or we're going to call it Billy Bean 2.0. We're not sure yet. Saw 5 to 10% higher yield in 22 and 23. This last year, however, we actually saw that drop off a little bit. So talk a little bit more about that. Big thing here, though, is maturity. They're definitely 5 days to a week earlier than billy beans. Billy beans are already a really early chickpea most years. This variety is even a little earlier than that. The big thing, though, they are determinate. If you remember 2019, we got 2 inches of rain in the month of September. Kind of the harvest from hell. I hope we never see a repeat of that. But garbs will grow back up or start growing again. If we do cool down, start getting that fall moisture, these will not do it. So someday we're going to lose Roundup as a desiccant. Not sure when that time may come, but I think we have that bean that will complement that if that does happen. Our new and early determinate billy bean. This is kind of where we're at on seed production. Just want to show you how quick we're bringing this variety up. Chickpeas are the worst crop you can grow for seed production. You plant 150 pounds and you get 100 or 1,500 pounds back. So you get about a 10 to 1 return every time you put them in. So it just takes a long time to bring them up. 22, we had a large breeding trial with Dr. Culvender Gill, who developed this new variety, gene shifters. We had about 90 square feet. We were able to pull the plants out of a couple of those reps. I seeded 0.008 acres in 23. Back on the flat, I think they yielded almost 2 ton. It was a really good increase. We took that seed fall of 23, went down to Yuma with it. This was about 2 miles from the Mexican border. Sean and I, we flew down first week of March, just wanted to make sure, these things were, we were going to have a crop, get our money back from that winter increase. Our goal was to go down there and walk through them, pull any off types, but you can see here, Yuma was actually really cool last winter, a lot of 50, 60 degrees. So they really went vegetative for a long time. In fact, the week after Sean and I left, they finally started getting into the 80s or high 80s. And that's when they really started setting pods and filling. We brought that seed back mid-May. We had a grower who had the field that he kind of sat idle waiting for them. We were able to get 28 acres in. Yield was okay. I think they went 1,200, 1,300 pounds, but 2025, this year, that same grower, we're going to have 220, 230 acres. We hope. We haven't cleaned the seed yet. 2026, we hope to, have at least 2,500 acres. And then 2027, that's when we really can start getting some of our Billy Bean acres replaced with them. So be patient. They're coming, but it takes quite a bit of time. One thing about this winter increase, it did speed that up by 1 year. How much money to raise pulses in 2025? The big thing on garbs is seed costs. Of course, we do a seed exchange. We defer seed, in case you don't want to borrow the money this spring to pay for that seed. Nash, where they are bigger, larger side seed, we're going to have to be in that 145 to 160 pound seed rate, depending on seed size. Quins and Sierras, where they're going to be more in that 800, 850 seeds per pound. We don't have to seed them quite as heavy. Billy Beans, 120 pound seed rate. Once again, that's really going to depend on seed size. We're shooting for four plants per square foot on those. Really depends on contract price, because we do a seed exchange on those. So, if it's a 30-cent contract, at a 1.3 exchange, they could be closer to $70 an acre. If, say, we have a 24-cent contract, they're going to be a little cheaper to grow. Small browns and lentils and peas, looking at kind of the same costs as we did a year ago. Herbicide package, got 3 ounces of Sharpen and Valor. Both of those have come down in price some, especially Valor. There's some liquid options out there that are a little cheaper, so maybe do some price shopping there. Clethodim running that higher rate, 16 ounces. Really good on wild oats still. I haven't seen any wild oats Clethodim doesn't touch. It's really that Italian ryegrass where guys are struggling. Maybe consider Sonaland. I know there's a few guys starting to go that route, actually providing pretty good broadleaf control as well as the Italian ryegrass. Herbicide, I've got 4 ounces of Everlon. That's pretty much Preaxer. That's Winfield's version of it. It's going to be a little cheaper option than Preaxer. I've got a 4 ounce rate at that, which I really like at that grass herbicide timing. And then 32 ounces of Maxin for beans. Once again, that's an amino acid based fertilizer or micro package. It's going to be around $7 an acre. Once again, if you watch Shannon's presentation, and I think I have a little bit of that data in mind as well. Peas, I got Sharpen Valor. Lentils, using Lorax. I know some guys are trying some different things there, maybe a little cheaper, but that's kind of the budget. Real quick, yeah, here it is. So here's I just kind of took out, I think we had both of our chickpea trials. I think we had 50 different treatments. They were huge trials. Shannon does a lot of spraying in those. But these won our trials, both behind the research farm, at the east end of Genesee, and then in Doug and Trevor Stout's field, which was a mile away. You can see right at first bloom, if you are going to spend the money, get out there and add this micronutrient package. Do it. First bloom's the best. You can see, though, at herbicide timing at the 11th, 12th node, still a pretty good treatment, though, and maybe you wouldn't have to go back out there and make that second application or that later application. We're going to actually have it for sale. We're kind of entering new waters here, but I think we've tested a lot of these products for a long time. No one else is selling it, and we're just like you guys. We want you guys to grow a really good crop, and that's just more beans for us to process and sell as well. So pretty cost effective, 200 pounds on a 35-cent bean. I would pay, if you'd give me that extra 200 pounds, I'll give you the product for free. So I could retire a little sooner. Looking at Everlon, this would be the cheaper form of Preaxer, estimated $500 a gallon, might be a little cheaper than that even at a 4 ounce rate. we're not seeing as good as a return as the micronutrient package, but for spending 14, $15 an acre, you're getting that back, and you're for every dollar that you spend, you should put $2 back in your pocket. Well, do want to mention though, if we have heavy blight pressure, I don't think that's going to be the case in 2025. I just couldn't find blight, especially around the Genesee area last year. So I have high confidence in our seed. We do a really good job there. I don't think we have any seed-borne seed this year. And then we use, seed treats as well for the insurance. But yeah, I just think this year we'll probably be looking more at that plant health, or maybe if we do have a little bit of blight that comes in, this Everlawn or Preaxer would do really well. If we do have heavy blight though, and that's one thing we'll come out and look at the crop for you early on, seeing what is out there. That's where we really probably need to take it to Marifus Top or Propulse. Definitely more money, but it's going to protect that crop better under heavier disease pressure. Total cost per acre, you can see Nash and Quinn's, 12, $13 more an acre than Sierras. There's a pretty high royalty assessed to these two. Of course, we can only sell them as certified seed, so that adds a little more cost to that seed as well. So kind of where they shake out. Small Browns, $107 an acre. Every year, they're the cheapest crop we can grow in the Palouse. Looking at 2 to 5 year average chickpea yields, here we have Quinn's. Interesting here, as we tested these varieties for a long time, we really see how they react on certain years. Like our intakes at the elevator, odd years have been the worst. Interesting though, Quinn's, those are the years where they really do the best. So I don't know if 25 or it's an odd year, Quinn's are going to show that trend again. 2019, I will say I don't have it on here, but Quinn's actually won all our trials that year, actually out yielded Billy Beans. So odd years, grow Quinn's, even years, grow Nash. And I don't know what it is, but we saw last year Nash had a 70-pound yield advantage over Quinn's, and you can see like 2020. Nash had a 200-pound yield advantage over Quinn's. Jumping into, projected budgets for this coming year. Of course, these in 2024 yields, these were pretty good. I really want to focus on bean size. That has a really big impact on price, or the net price that you're going to get when you sell them. Look at Nash. A 37-cent board price with 22 on the Bs, you're going to net 35 cents. So you take 1,960-pound crop, $685 gross, even though they are a little more money to plant, you're going to net close to $500 an acre. Looking at Quinn's this last year, once again, 100 pounds or 70 pounds lighter yield, still really nice bean size, 88%. A little cheaper to grow just because you're not having to seed them as heavy, a net of 470. Down here at Sierras, we just, it's kind of like growing Madsen versus Shine. As the genetics get better, we just see that yield spread starting to widen. I think we're there with Sierras. They've been out over 20 years now. Still a really, really good bean, still on a lot of acres. And like I said, that's a variety now that we're down to selling, unless we can get you on a waiting list on the others. But really good bean size with Sierras this last year. Really here was the yield, but $412 net per acre. This WFC1, this is a variety or experimental line that we've tested the last couple of years. Really like them. You can see they have very high yield potential while still maintaining that bigger bean size. It's out of a private breeding company in Europe. I think we're getting an exclusive on this and hopefully start a seed program this coming year. Looking at small kabulis, this is the 5-year average on most of these. You can see Billy Beans, still pretty hard to beat, 2,300 pound average yield over the years that we tested. Coming down here to Frontiers, this is the one I really like to compare to. A lot of our competition sells this variety. It's kind of like Quinn and Nash. I think we see on wetter years. Frontiers tend to sometimes even out yield a Billy Bean. They're about a week to 10 days later maturing than a Billy Bean. So if we have that cooler July, and those things can hang on a little longer, that, or finish filling that crop out, that's where they tend to do really good. Billy Beans very early, definitely do better on those droughtier years. NRG, even though they're super early, we're kind of seeing that trend with the Frontier, maybe the wetter years. However, that's maybe where they do a little bit better. Where they are so early, I think maybe those drought years, they maybe finish a little too soon. But once again, we've only tested them for 3 years. And that, 22 was a breeding trial only. So we'll learn more with them as time goes on. Looking at the budget for this coming year, once again, just like the large garbs, I'm using current board values at 24 cents and then 3-side average. You can see Billy Beans, 1,924 pounds, gross 461. Once again, cheaper crop to grow than large kabulis. You're going to net about $330 an acre. Down here, Frontiers, just with the yield being down this year for whatever reason, you're looking at a 265. And then here we have our new Billy Beans. So once again, I think some years Billy's will have an advantage. Other years, the new Billy will do better. Jumping into peas, here we have Banners on the left, extremely early stand-up variety, predominantly the pea of choice for us over the last 10, 15 years. We have transitioned away from those to passion or even earlier. Most years, that's a good thing. I do think, though, we're going to get those years where passions are so early and so determinate. If we happen to maybe get that, 3 days of 95-degree heat right in the peak of bloom, maybe that'll shut them down a little early. What we really like about them is the disease package with them. Definitely a better pea than the Banner. Really good powdery mildew resistance. The big thing here is Peonation mosaic virus. I think, we have that year where we have really bad aphid and they are transmitting virus. It can pretty much wipe a pea crop out, but the passions have resistance or tolerance to that. Jumping into lentils, we're really happy to say we think we have a small brown replacement finally, and it's a Clearfield. So I think it can maybe kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Jay Meyer, he had a 50-acre breeder to foundation seed increase just north of Genesee this last year. This is Jay cutting the trial. You can see they're about an inch taller than Pardinias, and I do think they have 150 pound yield advantage. Interesting note here that this is Genesee trials. You can see this nasty weed. There's some Italian ryegrass too, but this nasty weed that's growing out there, it's prostrate spurge. I looked at the Beyond label. It's actually on the label, so I went out with our 5-foot sprayer to spray the 3 reps of the Clearfields. You could tell it did a really good job. It actually killed it, knocked it out. I just wish I would have done it about 3 weeks sooner. These lentils were blooming at the time. Definitely dropped the blooms off with that late herbicide application. So it did impact yield, but it did knock that out. So I think next time this block goes into pulses, I might grow these Clearfield lentils here to try to eradicate that. Looking at 2 to 5 year averages, here we have Passion. You can see have about a 7% yield advantage over Banners over all the years that we've tested them. Very high yielding pea, pretty excited about those. Jumping down to small browns, if you're going to grow lentils, once again, small browns are pretty hard to beat. Not quite a 1,600 pound average over all the years tested. Looking at budgets, this is for peas. This is kind of ugly. I'm using last year's yield zone for whatever reason. I just think that July heat shut those peas down early. We didn't see great yields. 16 or a 1,576 pound average, 14-cent price, looking at $100 net return. So, if we can grow 2,500, 3,000 pound peas at these price levels, you can make okay money growing them, but you better get the yield, or we need Mac to get the price up on them. Looking at Brett Banner as a comparison, you can see these two varieties, yielded almost identical this year, pretty much net return. Looking at lentils, once again, looking at our three-side average for 2024, current board price, 35 cents. Here we have small browns, very cheap to grow, almost $500 gross, $107 an acre. You're looking at 380 net. Looking up here, these are the new Clearfield lentils. You can see overall they had a 40-pound yield advantage. Colfax Oaksdale, though, we saw a really nice yield bump with them. Genesee is kind of where we saw that drag, but once again, those had 4.5 ounces of beyond, at bloom. It definitely knocked those blooms off, and why we didn't see them yield as good there. Even so, the only thing there is going to be, higher seed cost on those. They're Title V PVP'd. There's a pretty good royalty assessed to them, and then we got to pay a little bit more money on the seed production in the future. But you can see for $5 more an acre in seed cost, it's going to be well worth it. Looking at all pulses, this is where we're kind of comparing apples to apples, or maybe apples to oranges. You can see estimated prices. This is just current values. We will have new crop contracts, hopefully here in mid-February. Went through that a little too quick. Here's your input cost. You can see NASH, are going to give you the best returns per acre, but one of your more expensive crops to put in at $190 an acre. Anyway. Looking at all crop comparisons now, this is where we really start trying to make our planning decisions for next spring. Here we have Quinn's, $360 net. Of course, lentils right there, Nash, Billy beans. You can see anything highlighted here in green, or pretty much all the pulse crops other than peas. Looking at malt barley, depending on what the contracts are going to be like, or even if we're going to have production, there's still a lot of unknowns there. Definitely could be the best option, but kind of where it's at. Looking at canola, doesn't look too great right here. Once again, kind of like peas, it's looking at a ton crop. I do think maybe canola values have the chance to go up. I guess time will tell. Overall, though, gross an acre for a little over $400. Expenses are down about $15-20 versus a year ago. Mostly that's fertilizer, and then your net is $250. Last year, this time, this was the projections we shared at the grower meeting a year ago. You can see average gross was about $100 more an acre at $500. Average expense, so about $15 more. Once again, that's mostly fertilizer, on the spring grains and canola. Average net at $326. So gonna be a little tighter year this coming year. Looking at enterprise budgets, that's where I use a lot of this for those previous slides. Once we get new crop prices established, get seed prices set, we'll get this updated, get it posted on the website. We do share it in an Excel format. I think that way you can open it up and kind of put in the yields that you want, or maybe you're looking at a different herbicide or fungicide package that I have up here. Kind of put in those true costs, and you can do those budget comparisons. Looking at seed treats, we're going to run the exact same package as we did last year. Of course, BSF, they let us kind of fine-tuned their package. We dropped the metal axle, added anchor. It's a lot better Pythium product. Down here, we dropped tritennaconazole, adding ACE, which is epiconazole, a really good fusarium product, really going to help on that dry land foot rot. And this is how that treatment performed this last year. We were pretty excited. Of course, Genesee, Colfax, Oakdale, three side average, 7.3 bushel over the untreated check. Notice here that this would be real similar to our winter wheat package that we put out. Of course, it's mostly, generic products. We don't have Traxa. It does have the legend in it for wireworm control. You can see quite a bit cheaper package, what we do in the fall versus spring versus Traxa. We did pick up 1.2 bushel with the Traxa, however, and that's going to pay for that additional insecticide and then some. I think the take-home message here, we kind of proven it. It's a really good package, and we still have quite a bit of wireworm out there on the Palouse. I think we're finally getting that population knocked back with Traxa, but it's just pretty good insurance, especially if we have that cool, wet spring that really favors wireworm. Looking at biological or nutritional products, this is probably the biggest thing that we get asked about. A lot of these products, seems like every company out there has one or two of these flagships. That's why we test them all. The biggest thing is probably the consistency. We'll see one of these products win Genesee, but then we test them at Oakdale and Colfax, and they actually yield below the treated check. We really can't offer on-demand treating. We do, though, if there's something up here that you really believe in and you want it on your seed, we really don't want to lose you as a seed customer. So we'll try to get that covered for you. Just logistically, it gets really hard with all the varieties, all the locations, if we start having to do different seed packages on things. Jumping over to Garbs, our 2024 home run blend, pretty happy with it. Interesting here, it won our three-side average at 382 pounds over the check. This Alba 3 blend with the base and the amplifier, real similar to our home run package. You can see they're within 10 pounds. So statistically, these top five are really no difference. And so it kind of reiterated, I think, what we're doing, is really, really good. Untreated check, once again, chickpeas, probably that one crop where we see respond the best to seed treats. Anything likes to eat a garb, above ground or below ground, and that's is what it is. Looking at the biological or nutritional side, unlike spring wheat, most of these products we actually saw yield drag. That's fairly typical. I think garbs take a long time to germinate, come out of the ground. I think the more chemical load that we put on that seed, we're definitely seeing delayed emergence on some of these products. Maybe why we're seeing those yields drop off a little bit. The only thing we've consistently seen over the years, in both these products, we actually use both of them. One is the wettable powder bacillus from Vijon, and then the Technostart or the Wall Start from Lallemand. We've seen really good yield responses with these over the years. Why? It's kind of like rhizobium. The bacteria creates that symbiotic relationship with the plant. They really help. They feed on a lot of these micros, mostly phosphate. Inorganic or organic, it just makes a quicker availability of that plant. And you can see the plant's increased uptake of some of these products with that bacillus. We always see a positive return. Any garb seed that you buy from us will either have one of these products put on it. Know your seed size. We send the seed rate chart out, fall and spring. We've done a lot of seed rate studies over the years. We have these dialed in pretty close, I think. Some years, a drought year or wet year, we might see a higher rate or a lower seed rate maybe pay off, but in general, these are pretty good. Big thing here, we really want those plants per square foot or plants per acre. Keep a tape measure in your drill when you pull into a field. Maybe you come into town and get a load of garb seed from us, fill the drill, before you get going, kind of run it across some hard ground or pull it across a dirt road, something like that. Get out with your tape measure, measure, and that'll kind of tell you where you need to be. Last, just want to thank everyone for your, considering P&W for your seed supplier. You can see since 2019-20, we've seen really good growth the last 4 or 5 years. Once again, I attest that to all those guys, our staff. We have a tremendous staff. They do an amazing job. Of course, the research, we really try to help you guys out. But you can see this last year, I think we were on 525,000 acres. Pretty excited with that. We hope to see that trend continue. Thank you for watching this. Hopefully you made it to our grower meeting and maybe you just wanted to watch it again. I don't know. I probably wouldn't, but just want to remind you guys, our summer field days, we put a lot of time and effort, into our trials, and we hope you can make it to one of these and go out there and walk through the trials with us. So thank you for watching, and we hope you have a really good, happy New Year.